Hello everyone, welcome to my short course on how to create an Active Directory based lab in a fully automated way using Hyper-V. So I will be using a tool called Automated Labs for this course. So why do you need to create an automated labs for your own purposes? So just to give you an example on in my particular scenario, so I was doing a pen testing and demonstration for a lot of my students and clients. So oftentimes I'll need to set up like an Active Directory, a bunch of VMs, and I need to install a specific version of a software in one of the VMs, and I also need to install like hacking tools in one of the machines. So that was time consuming, right? I mean, so you need to all this takes a lot of time, and then when I do a specific use case, and if I want to jump to another use case, and then I need to redo everything from scratch, or I need to start uninstalling software to set the scenario. So in cases like that, when you have a tool like this which can recreate the whole lab environment without you getting involved, is kind of a time saver. And you can also use this kind of labs for testing a lot of different software components, software versions, and how it works on different operating systems. This is I've been using this tool for like the last 3 to 4 years, and it's a God-given tool for something what I do for my students, and I'm sure you will see the value in what this tool can give you, and I just wanted to share my knowledge. So let's see what we'll be covering in this course. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Raj Ganesh Pandurangan, and I'm a security solutions architect with 20 plus years of experience in IT security. So I also train from time to time, and I also have these various certifications for quite a while now. So you will be creating a lab, which you see in this PowerPoint slide. So you'll be creating a lab similar to that without even touching anything other than the scripts. You will create everything in whatever you see in the screen in a fully automated fashion. So the agenda for this lab will be, so let me jump here. So again, we'll be using a tool called Automated Labs. And so we'll be using Windows 10 as a host operating system, and once we install the Windows 10, we'll be installing Hyper-V, which is a feature which you can enable on Windows 10, and then we'll be installing a tool, Automated Labs, and then we will also download Windows 2016 and Windows 2019 to just to give two different flavors of operating systems from Microsoft website. We will start with creating simple VMs which are in your environment with access to internet, and then now we will step it up a notch, and we will create complex labs. We will create like that has like Active Directory with DNS support. We will create a router which gives access to the internet, and we'll also create a bunch of VMs for various purposes. And once we complete that, we'll do some small automated activities like creating folders, copying files from a host machine to your VMs, and we'll also perform various simple activities. So one key piece of information or feature I will demonstrate is Chocolatey. So if you're not familiar with what Chocolatey is, it is a command line tool which can be used for installing a lot of software tools, just like you do with Linux in a command from a command line. So basically they have like thousands and thousands of software like 7-Zip, Firefox, Chrome, Wireshark. I mean, you name it, they have it in their repository. So I'm also showing you how to install that using automated fashion. And finally, we will use and install sysmon, which is like a monitoring tool, just to give you like what can be achieved using this tool. And there's a lot of things which if you haven't seen this tool, you're going to be in for a treat. You're going to be amazed at how easy this is to set everything up. And I mean, I want you to take my word for it. Once you start using this tool, you will never go back in setting up your lab in a manual fashion. And one cool thing is, if I'm showing this in Hyper-V, the same set of commands will also work in Azure for setting up VMs in the cloud environment. So without further ado, let's jump on to our training, and we'll start with the installation of Hyper-V. So before we proceed, we need to make sure that Hyper-V role is installed on this Windows 10 box. So Hyper-V is the hypervisor which comes built into Windows 10 platform, but it is not enabled by default. So it is pretty simple to install that, and I will show exactly how to do that. So go to your search box here and just search for Hyper-V. And you have to choose this option to enable Windows features. All you have to do is look for this Hyper-V role here and then make sure everything is checked. So once you check those boxes and click OK, Windows will install all the necessary drivers that is required for the Hyper-V hypervisor. So you may have to restart the machine once this role is installed. So let me pause the video and I'll pick up right after the reboot. So the machine just rebooted. So once the Hyper-V role is enabled, you can find the Hyper-V manager by using the Windows search over here. So this is the Hyper-V manager. Once you start installing all the virtual machines, it will show up in this blank window here. So right now we do not have anything over here. So I do not like the computer name that was given by default. So let's try to fix that by changing the name to something which is more easy to see. So let's go to the computer name here. And you can change, I believe it is this one, yes. So I don't know, we can just give it a simple name like a server. Yeah, feel free to give any name you like, but I like to keep things simple, and so that's typically what I use for any of my hypervisors. Again, you have to restart when you change your machine computer name. Again, let me pause my video again, and then I'll get back to you right after the reboot. Okay, it's back up. So let me open the Hyper-V manager one more time. Yeah, this is much better. So it's called as a server. So just to give you a little tour on this hypervisor or Hyper-V manager, so turn your attention to this actions section over here. So you can do a lot of things, but for all practical purposes, you don't have to touch most of these options. The only main menu I would recommend you to get familiar with is the virtual switch manager. So if you click on that one, you will see all the different switches that are already installed, or the ones it allows you to create on this machine. So this default switch is created by default, but you can easily create an internal switch or a private switch depending upon what you're trying to do. A switch is where when you create it, then when you create a virtual machine, you can assign those virtual machines to a switch. So multiple VMs belonging to one switch can communicate with each other. So again, don't worry too much about that. We'll be seeing a lot of good examples on how to create a switch using our automated platform. So just to give you a flavor, if you want to create a manual switch, again, you can just click on internal, create a switch, and just say test switch, and then you can click apply. It is as easy as creating a switch. Again, I'm going to delete this because we're going to let our automated tool, which we'll be discussing in the next section, to create these for us. So this is where things starts to get very interesting. So AutomatedLab, which is the framework we'll be installing shortly, has changed my life on how I do anything with respect to automation, on creating test labs for testing any features, or testing Active Directory roles, or learning hacking in general, or for any other purposes you may think of. So let's get AutomatedLab installed, and then we can see the capabilities of it in the subsequent lectures. So before I proceed, I like to install Chrome. That is one of my favorite browsers. I also like Firefox, but let me install Chrome before we proceed here. So just click download, and you can just run it here. Yeah, it shouldn't take too long, so just bear with me here before we get to the exciting stuff. Okay, Chrome is now installed. So let me go to just search for Automated Labs using this Chrome browser. I don't like to give links because things change a lot, and it is easier to just do a quick Google search and pick up the latest link. So you need to look for an MSI file to install on your Windows. So you can use right here, and 522 is the latest version. So I'm just going to grab this MSI file. It's a pretty simple install. So once it's downloaded, just try to install the program. You don't have to change anything. I would always do the complete installation. Okay, we did install, though it took only a couple of minutes. This is one of the programs that is going to help you in your learning journey to do a lot of Windows-based labs. So let's see what kind of folder structure it created for us. So if you go to the C drive over here, it created a lab sources folder. And if you look at here, they do have a lot of different folders. So there's a lot of sample scripts. So if I go back here, for different platforms, we can take a few and play with it. But again, do not worry about those scripts. So another important folder is the ISO files. So this is where you need to download your ISOs, like Windows 2019, Windows 2016, Windows 10. If you happen to have MSDN subscription, you can download it from there, and you can install. You can copy it to this folder. But just to keep it as simplistic, so that everyone can have access to what we're looking here, I'm going to be downloading Windows 2019. So Windows gives 2019 for free for I believe 90 days or 180 days. So again, that is a plenty of time to create these labs. And again, once the product expires or the license expires, you can always redo the lab, because you don't have to do anything manually once you know the process. So in order to proceed, we need to grab some of Windows ISOs from online. So again, like I said before, if you have MSDN subscription, that is the best place to download different operating systems like Windows 2019, Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows 2016. Since I don't expect everyone taking these courses to have access to those ISOs, I'm just going to grab one that's available for free, so that everyone is on the same page here. So let's go back to our favorite Google browser here, and I'll just search for Windows 2019. So I think you get the first hit over here. So let's try that. And yeah, Microsoft is nice enough to let us try the newer operating systems for fair amount of time. So I think this one is for 180 days. So again, this is awesome because you get to try the brand new Windows 2019 server for 180 days. And this is sufficient for us for everything we're trying to achieve in this lab here. So we need the ISO file. So let's continue. And it is going to ask for some basic info. So let's give that to them. Again, if you have an account with Microsoft, you can also log in using that. And that's not my real number, by the way. So I'm going to say United States and continue. And yeah, feel free to choose language of your choice, but I'm going to pick English here and then download. So this is a 4.9 gig file, so it could take a few minutes to download. Yeah, the file is downloaded. So let's go to the folder, and so I'm going to copy this, or actually cut it, and then I'm going to go to my C lab sources and then ISO and paste it over here. Again, if you have access to other operating systems like Windows 10 or Windows 2016, yeah, download it and then copy those files over here. So once you do that, so let's go back to AutomatedLab. So in order to access AutomatedLab is nothing but a bunch of PowerShell scripts. So it's installed as a module in the modules directory. So the path should be already set, so you don't have to do anything special for it to work. But again, so let's check and see how to access that. So just go to PowerShell ISC. This is very important. You have to start this as an administrator, because AutomatedLab is creating like switches, which I discussed in my earlier lectures. So that in order to create those switches on your host, you need to have administrative access. So I'm going to open this as administrator. And by default, it doesn't give you the script pane. So in order to get access so that you can type some stuff, go ahead and check the script pane. So this is where you can type in some commands, and then you'll see the execution over here. So before we write any full-blown scripts, let's test like what should we have here. Again, don't get bogged down with too much of these commands. You will eventually learn these commands slowly. So once you get flexible or comfortable with this tool, I'll show you how to find these commands on your own. So right now, let's use this command to see what operating systems are available. So again, this is going to read all the ISO files which we just copied, and it's going to show us the list. So it is giving an error, right? So it is saying the command was found in the AutomatedLab. So I think before we can use the AutomatedLab, you need to import the module AutomatedLab. So let's follow that and see what it does. It is not case sensitive, so you can just do this. Okay, now we see another error. Again, so we started these lectures from a brand new Windows operating system. So by default, Windows doesn't let you run any unauthorized PowerShell scripts on your machine, so that we have to, in order to get these scripts working, you need to relax the rules, so to speak, so that we can run these tools. Again, it is not a security issue. As long as you use these machines for testing purposes, you should be just fine. So I'm going to say set execution policy to remote sign. And you have to allow S to all. So once you do that, let's import the module again. So I think it should be able to import AutomatedLab. So AutomatedLab again is it's a collection of various PowerShell scripts. Once you install all these modules, you should be able to use the various commandlets that are within that package. Again, so it's up to you. I'm just going to say yes. I've been working with this AutomatedLab for a long time. I know those guys. I don't think they will use it for any malicious purposes. So now that AutomatedLab is imported, let me clear the screen for a second, and then let's do the same command again. Again, I'm pressing tab to get the different commands here. So all it is doing is it is scanning the ISO file that are present in this directory, and it's going to tell us what operating systems are available. So right now, based on that one ISO file, we can install these 4 different variations. So typically we need, it's always good to go with this data center evaluation desktop experience. So that you will have a GUI so that you can easily install and then work with the Windows platform. So I always go with the data center evaluation desktop version. So if you have multiple ISO files in that directory, you're going to see a lot more than this. Now that we have all our prerequisites done, let's try to install a simple lab in an automated fashion. So for that, let's go to the C lab sources folder, and then let's look at some sample scripts here. Again, there are different complex scripts you can use, but I would always start with the introduction and go through these scripts first before you start going to other folders. So I'm going to start this script, and I'm going to open with notepad, just to copy and paste. Again, remember, whenever you open those files, you need to open it as administrator for it to work. So I'm just going to grab it, paste it here in the script, and let's give it an easy name, save as, and then I'm going to say single mission. Again, we will gradually start from the very basics, and at the end of the course, you will build a very complex lab with a lot of tools installed. So let's look at this line by line. Again, like I said before, do not get too much bogged down on the commands, because that is the beauty of automation. So once you build something which works for you, you don't have to remember these things. You can just run the script and it'll work for you. So for automated labs to work, you need to define a lab, right? And this can be any lab. So I'm going to say, instead of Win10, I'm going to say lab 1. And for the next one, we'll use lab 2 and so forth. And we have to specify the virtual machine as Hyper-V, the virtualization engine. So automated labs also support Azure, but I will not be covering that in this course. But for this course, we'll be using only Hyper-V. So this is the first line you will pretty much see in all the scripts. In the second line over here, you're going to define lab, right? So like what's the name of the virtual machine you want to create, how much memory you want to give, and what is the operating systems you want to create. Again, there are more options. If you give a hyphen, you can see all the different options that are available. There is plenty of options for you to play with. Again, let's start it simple, and once you get comfortable, you can easily you can make it more you can enable more features to create a mission. So based on the last lab, we don't have a Windows 10 Pro, right? All we have is a Windows Server 2019. So let's grab the whole thing from here and copy it to the buffer and then paste it here. Again, if you have Windows 10 ISO file, feel free to try that. But again, based on a copy the name from what you see over here. And the next step is to add a line called install lab. So this is the step which where it actually installs your operating systems. So if you look here, you're not specifying what's the name of the virtual switch you want to create. So AutomatedLabs, it creates some virtual switches by default, and it gives it some random names. But you can give those options here, which again we will see in later modules. So I'm going to just run the scripts and see what happens. Again, this is installing a whole Windows operating system, so it is going to take some time. So I'm going to pause the video after a certain stage, and I'll get back to you once the lab is complete. You can imagine how much work it is to install any Windows operating systems. You have to go through a bunch of steps, and I mean, I'm tired of clicking next, and I mean picking like various options for the Windows missions. But here, I mean, AutomatedLabs, all you're telling is what operating systems you want, how much memory you want to give, and then it is installing it for you. And also, if you have more memory on your host machine, I would give at least 2 or even 4 will be even better. So you can see the various steps that it's trying to perform here. It is creating a network called lab1. So if you go back to the hypervisor here, remember I showed you the virtual switch manager. So it should create hopefully that lab1 switch here. So let's see if it created or not. So it is also based on if you have different hard drives, it tries to see the speed of which is most fastest, and it will try to install the VMs in that drive. So I don't believe it installed the virtual switch just yet, but let's check one more time. So I'm not going to let you watch this whole process. Let me pause the video for a second, and I will get back to you once the installation done. Again, if I do any other steps, I will let you know. Yeah, I will not do anything extra other than what you already saw here. So AutomatedLabs is prompting for relaxing some more remoting features. I just wanted to show that while it's doing the automation here. So I'm just going to say OK for this one. And it needs to enable CRED SSP. Again, don't get too bogged down on these terminologies. If you're interested, I will talk about it towards the end of the course. Again, I'm going to say OK for that as well. And then so it is saying like it needs to add it to the trusted host list. I'm going to say OK for that too. And yes for that too. So again, say yes. So I'm going to agree to everything it says. Again, most of the time I do these labs in a isolated test missions. So make sure you don't have any other production missions or sensitive missions in the same network. So lab is started and it's currently deploying this Windows 2019. Okay, so I will pause for a bit and I'll get back to you as soon as it is done creating this lab. So the script just got done and the virtual machine is installed without us touching any of the steps manually here. So let's scroll back and see what all did AutomatedLab did for us. So by the way, I may refer AutomatedLabs as AL just for short form sometimes, so just don't get alarmed with that. So it did create a virtual machine called client1, which is expected which is what the name we gave here. It did create a network or a virtual switch called lab1. So let's check that. So if you go to the virtual switch manager here, there is a switch which AL created for us, which is of type internal. And it's also creating with an address space of 192 or 168.11 address space. So if you have multiple virtual machines, AutomatedLabs will give an IP address based on this address range. So it is saying like all the Hyper-V machines will be created in D drive. So in your case, if you don't have a D drive, everything will be created in C. So in my case, I have a couple of drives. So let me go check at the D drive. So there is a folder, AutomatedLab. So this is also pretty cool. So AutomatedLab, what it does is it does create a base image, and so whenever you create any virtual labs based on the same ISO image or like Windows 2019, it will use this as a base. So only the first time it is going to take a long time for you to create a lab. So anytime after that, if you create the same virtual machine, it shouldn't take that long. And this is where all the files are located. So you can see all the different files for that virtual machine here. So what else? It is also saying that you can easily, it added a host entry so that you can easily ping client1. I'm not sure if it lets you ping here. Yeah, it is letting you ping, and it gave the IP address of 11.3. The reason that you're able to ping is because it added a host entry to your local host machine. And it also says that you can remove the lab by using this command remove lab. So anyway, so the good thing is we have a virtual machine without any manual steps, which is always a painful task in Windows. So let's see what it looks like. So one thing which again we can specify the passwords in the script when we create it, but by default it is going to use a password called somepass1. Again, I will type it up here in notepad for you. So this is the default password AL uses for our default use cases. So I mean, this is awesome. I mean, this is when I saw this VMs created without me doing anything, that just completely blew my mind, right? So again, so this one is not connected to the internet. But you can have multiple VMs, and then you can have each of those machines talk to each other. You can also make changes manually. So for example, if you want to increase the RAM, you can go here and then you can change the RAM to like 2 gigs or 4 gig RAM, depending upon how much you have in your host machine. So what else? I'm going to close this, and I'm going to do I'm going to show you flexibility here. So now that you have one virtual machine, so I'm going to copy this line and then paste it again. I'm going to call it client2. I'm going to give it 2 GB, and it's again based on the same operating system. So I'm going to run it again. AL is pretty smart in the sense that it knows that it already created this client1, so it will just skip that line and it will continue and create the second virtual machine for you. So again, it is going to give a random IP address. Most of the time it goes in sequence. So I'm guessing last time it was 192.168.11.3. So I'm guessing this could be a .4. Again, so this, since we already have the image created, this lab should be pretty fast compared to the initial lab we created. But I'll just pause this one more time, and then I will continue as soon as this is done. So the lab is just completed. So let's scroll back again and see what all changes it did. So it was trying to create a network called lab1. Since it was already there, I didn't create it. So it says already exists. And also, like I said before, since the client one is already there, it is not creating it again. So it went ahead and created client 2 with the same specs. So if you go back to the hypervisor here, you have 2 client machines and with a different IP address. So let's log on with the same password, which is sumpass1, and then it has an IP address of 11.4. So for now, if I go back and let me open a command prompt. It takes a bit to load it for the first time. Yeah, I'm just opening PowerShell. And let's say if I ping so I'm able to ping the other system which we created, which is client 1. So I hope you are excited as I am. This is amazing because if you look at the script, you can copy this line 10 times and you can just run the script, just take a coffee and then come back, and you'll have 10 VMs to work with and create your labs. So I just want to start clean. So let's delete this lab, and we will create another lab for having clients with internet access. So in order to clean this lab, you just have to do remove lab and then the name of the lab, which is lab1. So AL will take care of removing all the VMs from your host machine to save some space and memory. So again, you don't have to worry about deleting any machines manually. AL has this script which comes in handy, so you can have a lot more of test labs, and then you can remove the ones which are no longer required. So let me pause the video recording for now, and I'll get back to you when the labs are removed. Okay, and it's asking for is it okay to remove? I'm just going to say yes to all. Awesome. So I think we have a clean environment now. If you look here, we don't have any more VMs here. So let's continue with the next section on how to create VMs that has internet access. So let's check and see if Automated Labs have any such scripts so that we can just use that as a template. So we are lucky enough to have a script which is pretty much what we are looking for. So basically this is creating a default switch, and it's using an adapter Wi-Fi. So let's grab this script and let's see, copy this one, and then again, we need to change this Windows 10 to whatever we need. So if you remember, so we need to get our lab. So let's grab this for now. And let's see, it's using a default switch. So if we go back to our Hyper-V switch manager here, so it's trying to use the default switch, which again, it's connected to our network card, which is the gigabyte network connection in my case. So in order to get internet access for the VMs. So I don't have a Wi-Fi network, but I have an adapter called Ethernet. Again, if you go back to your network settings here, so I have two cards which are Ethernet and Ethernet 5. So let's use this Ethernet for this demo. And then we're going to keep this as Win 2019. I'm just going to give 4 GB because I have a lot of memory in my machine here. Okay, I think that's pretty much what we need to do. Let's run the script, and so I'll get back to you when this is done again. So the lab just got completed, so let's take a look at it. So there is our client one again. Password is somepass1. So this mission, like we guessed, it's going to have internet access, which is what you see here. And you should be able to browse anywhere you want to. Awesome. So let me close this one, and then I'm going to clean up the labs again so that we can get ready for our next interesting labs. So once this is done, all the VMs will be deleted, and in the next lab we will do something interesting with an Active Directory lab. So we'll have an Active Directory, a Windows router, and also a few virtual machines which will be connected to the domain. So this is going to be a short lecture. So in order to give us some flavor when we are trying out different labs, I went and downloaded the Windows 2016 version as well, so that we can play with 2019 and 2016 when we create a lab with multiple operating systems. So again, do a Google search for Windows 2016 server, and make sure to pick the one from Microsoft website. And you just have to do the normal sign up like we did for the 2019, and you can just download it here. So once it is downloaded, you can copy the file to the C lab sources ISO file. So that is very important. So yours should look something similar to this. You should have two different files. So now if I head back to my PowerShell, again, remember to be in the administrator version, otherwise you will not, this may not work. So when you do get lab available, you can just pick this one. So last time when we ran this command, we saw a 4. Right now we see 4 more, which is respect to 2016 server. So the only ones we'll be using for this course is these the data center and the desktop experience. Hope you were able to download the Windows 2016 server without any issues. So based on my testing with these labs prior to taking this video, I saw some issues with the Windows 2019 ISO with the automation aspect of it. If you have a commercial like a licensed version of 2019, I didn't have any issues, but with this specific free version, I was getting some issues with the labs. So we may end up sticking with just Windows 2016 server for these labs. So now that you know how to set up simple labs with one or two systems with access to the internet, let's see how we can take this to the next notch by setting up this complex lab which you're seeing on the screen right now. So let me take a minute and explain you what is going on here. So in this lab, which we'll be writing scripts to create this whole setup, we will be having a router. So router is basically to have access to the internet over here. So this is be using the host internet to share the internet with these VMs you see over here. So the domain controller DNS will be pointing to this router's IP address. So that we can do a name resolution and everything from this domain controller. And also this VMs will be having this domain controller as the DNS server. So all these VMs can also do name resolution as well. And so we'll be setting up these sample missions here. Let me see if I can change the color. So we'll be setting like a sales mission, HR mission, PCI. These are just reference missions intended to do different things based on what you're looking for. So for example, if you're setting up a hacking lab, you can set up various missions with various naming conventions, and you can show how these things can be exploited in a real network. And then you can kind of make it more more fun for whatever purpose you're doing for your audience here. So we will also have a reserve machine for Elastic Stack, which is a SIM solution. But I don't think I will be showing you how to install Elastic Stack in this video, but I'll set something up so that I'll show you how to set up the whole Elastic Stack in automated fashion using this tool. You can also have like a victim machine. So you can demonstrate like phishing attempts on this host. So the goal here is, if you have to set up this whole lab in a manual way, you need to run the ISO file, set up the missions. You have to name the machine. You have to give the IP addresses. There's a lot of manual steps that are involved to set this up. And if you're doing this in a repeated way, again, if you do, I've been doing a lot of pen testing over the years. So whenever I want to set something up, you want to have a repeat and rinse kind of a network so that you can easily come up with this like a standard point, so that you can start installing your tools and then get going, right? You don't want to be that behind your mind that this will take me forever, and that making you to procrastinate all these actions you're looking forward to. So once we install this device, we can also do some cool stuff like we will set up some, we will create a small script to create users. So we'll use AutomatedLab to create the users in the domain controller. So any of these users can just use the accounts that are present in this script. We will also create some sample scripts to create folders in these VMs you see over here. And what else? Let's me do this. And what else will we be doing? So we'll also install a framework called Chocolatey. I don't know if you're familiar with Chocolatey, so I'm just going to write it here. If you're not familiar with Chocolatey, you're in for a treat. So Chocolatey is a Windows command line utility. So once you install this on these VMs, so you can install any software. Again, there are thousands and thousands of software in this Chocolatey framework. I'm going to show you how to do that. For example, if you want to install 7-zip or Firefox, Notepad++, you name it, and all those software is going to be in there. I mean, Wireshark. This is one of the best hidden treasures in Windows automated deployments. So I'm going to show you how to set up Chocolatey, and that is exactly why this particular setup is makes it easier for you to create any labs of your wish. So enough of the ramblings. I will show you how to set up this whole lab, and also we will see how to set up these small actions in the next hour or so. So if you watch this couple of hours video, you will be much more confident in setting up these automated labs. So let's head on to our next action of writing the scripts to set up this lab. Based on the network diagram which we looked in the last lecture, I created this PowerShell script. So I strongly encourage you to go to the scripts that were provided by the automated labs to get a better understanding of different scenarios. But I will leave it up to you to explore more and play with it on these different labs. Again, I create my labs, which is purely based on those sample scripts. So you kind of use the code which you need and use it for your purposes. So frankly, you don't need to understand all the scripts in there. If you can understand 5% of what's in there, plus whatever I am teaching in here, that will be plenty for solving a majority of use cases when you try to achieve a lot of different certifications that is based on Windows. So this is closely mapping to the network diagram I showed you last time. So just keep that handy, just print it out and then so that you can see what is going on here. So again, I'm going to walk you line by line, and don't worry about copying this code from here. I'm going to give you the script. It should be available in the resources section. So just grab it and then paste it into your own PowerShell editor here. So what did we do here? So if you remember, we downloaded 2 ISO files. So for starters, this is the Windows 2019, this is the Windows 2016. So the first line here is required for any automated lab based scenarios. You need to define a lab. So you can call this anything you need. I'm just calling it lab 2, and I'm telling it I want all the VMs to be located in this D drive. So if you do not have a D drive, you can just use C drive, but make sure you have this path already created. And I'm also telling that I want the reference size disk. So if you remember, AL creates a baseline images so that once you have a VM based off that image, any subsequent VMs are based on that image. So these are the various images I have in my labs. And also the default virtualization engine is Hyper-V, which is expected. So these are variables. So if you're not familiar with what PowerShell is, so when you say $, and then we are just assigning these values to these variables so that you can use it later on in your scripts. So I'm just defining a domain called xclaris. You can name it even microsoft.local or yahoo.com, and it doesn't matter. So feel free to give a username and password. So that will be what we will be using in your labs. So since this is going to be an Active Directory based labs, you also have to define the domain definitions. So again, I keep stressing this again and again. Do not worry about what each command is doing. So that is the beauty of automation. Once you have something that is working for you, you just create the script and reuse it over and over again without having to get into too much details. But again, as you get more and more familiar, you can easily expand this lab by looking at the sample scripts that is provided for you there. So this is the lab domain definitions, and I'm using the domain which is defined here, and I'm using the admin user. Again, it's just defined here, and this will be the admin password. So this is also required. This will be the local users that will be created, and I'm using the same login and password on each of the missions. This again we saw in the previous one, and I'm defining a network or a virtual switch which will be called net1, and I'm also defining the address space. So in the previous small lab we did with and without the internet, we let AutomatedLabs decide on what address space it wants to use. I think it used the 192.168.11 address space, but you can use whatever you like, and then that is what I'm doing it here. And this line we saw before, which we are using an adapter of Ethernet. Check your internet settings to find what your Ethernet is called. And this is an external switch. So this is an interesting piece of code. So this, if you think that you're going to be reusing a lot of values in your labs, you may want to define it in this way. So this will be applied to each and every VMs you defined in your labs. So all these values, think of that it will be added towards the end of this line. So you don't have to define the domain name, the gateway, the memory for each of these systems. So it will grab the defaults from what is defined here. So that is why it is called the default parameter values. So it's a good place to put all the variables that you don't want to change, and you can obviously override it in your individual lines if you want to change the memory, for example, on any of the missions. So for example, let's say I want 8 gigs of memory for my Elastic Stack, which is a SIM solution, which we will be taking a look briefly, so that it may require a little bit more memory than usual. So I may give 8 gigs since I have a memory to spare here. So we are defining the DNS names. Again, the DNS names is based on the Active Directory, the domain controller's IP address. So that is what I'm defining it as, the DNS server. And the domain name is xclaris.com, and the gateway. So the gateway, again, it's we will be adding a router in this lab as well. So what a router does is, if you go back to my network diagram, so you can see that the domain controller is communicating with the router, which gives us access to the intranet. So all the machines in the lab, they talk to the domain controller, and the domain controller finds the way to find the router to give us access to the internet. So that is why you need to define the gateway address for all the machines. And the DNS will be mapped to the Active Directory, and the gateway will be mapped to the gateway, which will be the router. So if you have any problems with these concepts, look at my other section where we did the Active Directory lab manually. So that lab, I did that course, all these lectures, I think 2 years back, but everything is relevant. So the goal of adding these set of lectures is to automate that whole process. So you might have taken a few hours to set that lab manually, but you're going to see how you're going to set this same lab without touching anything by automation. So again, these parameter values we will get back to again, take a look at it. It's fairly trivial. And so the one thing is, since I'm defining this operating systems, so the default operating system for all these VMs is going to be the 2016. But I just want to have a flavor, and so that these two machines, the Top Secret and the Elastic Stack, is going to be using the 2019 server. And I'm also telling each of those machines to use the network net1 or the switch, which is also defined here. And we are giving it as an individual IP address. So in the previous scripts we saw, AL gave its own IP address in sequence. Here you have the ability to define your own IP addresses. So that is pretty much for these labs. And also, since all these default values are going to be carried over to each of these systems, it will be joining the domain, because we are defining the domain name, the gateway for each of these individual missions. So when this lab is said and done, all of these missions will be created, and not only that, it will be added to the domain, which is xclaris.local automatically. So this is and one thing which I haven't mentioned before. So Automated Labs comes with a lot of predefined roles, like a root DC gives the domain controller role, or routing gives the routing capabilities in that mission. And similarly, we have like SQL Server, PKI. So you can add multiple roles for this labs. So check the documentation. We'll be looking at few roles in this course, but for most of the cases, this is what I've used a lot, and this router is also one of the key things. So these two lines are something new, especially these roles, which is new. And also, let's see. Okay, this one is also interesting. The network adapter. So the network adapter is based on these three lines over here. So if you know a router, it needs to have two interfaces. One, which is communicating to your local network, meaning all these VMs, and the second adapter should be talking to the internet facing. So that is how it provides internet access to all your VMs that are in your lab. So in order to do that, I'm just defining an external switch and the net one, and the internal switch is going to have this IP address, and the external interface is going to have this IP address. So again, go back to my other section and then understand why and how you do this manually with a router. So that is pretty much it. And again, this line is also something new. So when you do a detailed, it is going to give you everything that the script used, the passwords, what it did, the summary of the labs. So how many lines is this? So it's only 47 lines of code. So if you remove all the white spaces, let's say around 40 lines of code. So we're creating a complex lab based on the network diagram, which I showed you in just less than 40 minutes, 40 lines of code. And I'm going to start this code right now. And I'm going to come back in 45 minutes or 30 minutes. I don't know. I mean, depending upon your hardware speed, RAM you have, this lab can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 1 hour, right? Again, I highly recommend having SSD drives with at least 16 GB memory. And if you have 16 GB, try to adjust these to just 2 gigs of memory because you may not, the host mission may not be able to work with that. So you're going to come back in 30 minutes to 1 hour, and you're going to be amazed with the power of this. So I'm going to show you what's in it right now. The Hyper-V hypervisor, which is the server is the host name, and we don't have any VMs running right now. So let's say you have the script, and everything is it has all the prerequisites. I'm going to hit the play button here, and then I'm just going to go for a quick jog and take a quick shower, and then I'll be right back, and we will take a look at the lab once it's done. So just hang tight, and we will see you soon. Hi, I'm sure that everyone is waiting to see the output of the script. So the script took around 1 hour, close to an hour. I didn't keep the exact timing, but it completed without any issues. So if you scroll back, on time to time, you will see some like script errors. Unless it stops the scripts, do not worry too much about these errors. So your goal is to see what is the last line. Just check the end of this script output and see if there's any glaring issues out there. So based on what I see here, this looks like it's a clean run, and it created all these missions. So just like magic, if we go back to my hypervisor, you can see the list of 8 missions that are installed without us doing any kind of manual intervention. So this is what I've been talking about all along. This is where you want to be. You want to create your own Active Directory environment for any testing purposes or even if you're preparing for Windows based certifications or any hacking certifications, you need a lab like this so that you can straight away install all the tools that are required, and you can start testing and playing with it. So the more mistakes you make, again, you don't have to worry too much. You can just rerun the scripts and you'll have a fresh lab once again. So let's take a look at some of these labs. So let's look at the domain controller, for example. So I'm going to open the domain controller. As you know, the password is somepass1. And I'm going to just maximize this for a second. And I'm going to open the server manager. So I'm going to go to the local server and just check and verify everything looks good here. So I'm going to go to the tools and then go to Active Directory and users. So there is our domain which we wanted to create. And so the users, we created the Raj user. So we will be creating many more users using an automated script. I will show those things shortly. And if you look at the computers, these are the computers that are joined to the domain. Again, we didn't log on to each and every mission, and we didn't join to the domain. So everything is done automatically for us. So let me go back, close this, and then go to one of these missions. Let's say for secret. So the password is same, which is somepass1. And this mission has internet access, and so it is using the default gateway 20.2, which is what is in the script, and the DNS server is pointing to the Active Directory. And if I open a command prompt, so it is saying xclaris /Raj, meaning it is joined to the domain. And I should be able to resolve any of the missions using the short names. So everything is set up for us. By default, AutomatedLabs disables the firewall, so you don't have to worry about any internal connectivity for any of these missions. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show in this lab, and I hope you are really excited. So this is something, I don't know if you've experienced this in the past. This is just groundbreaking. I mean, this is something really, really amazing. And I encourage you to play with different labs. So one more thing, let me show you. So we used a couple of missions. We kind of used a different operating systems. Let me go back here. So if you look here, so we're using Windows 2019 for this top secret, and then we are using let's see, I think we used one more. Yeah, for this elk stack, elk mission, we're using Windows 2019. And also we used 8 GB RAM for the elk stack, which again, if you look here, it is assigned the 8 GB RAM. So everything that you see here is configurable, and even if you restart the host, all these missions we will actually turn and start running. And the reason for that is, if you go back to the scripts here, I saw that. I think that's the default behavior, that whenever you restart the host, the VMs we will start running automatically. Again, we will take a quick look at that in a later module. So anyway, I will leave it leave it here. So in the next section, we will download a tool called a remote ng to manage our VMs. The reason I like a tool rather than using an RDP or using just by double clicking here, after a while it gets confusing. So if I click connect, That mission is kind of hiding behind this. If you look here, I don't think I opened it. Let me try again. So if I maximize this, so you see that, I mean, it's kind of hiding in the back. And if you open multiple VMs, it is kind of hard to find out which machine you're actually working on. So this remote MG, remote NG is a free tool, and it will make your life a lot easier, and you don't have to type your password each time. So we can peek and configure everything so that you can get to the VM directly. So let's head over to our Chrome, and then just go to Google and search for remote ng. Okay, so this is the one we need to be downloading. So this is a free tool, and it has I mean, you can also manage your Linux machines, so anything. I mean, there's a lot more features. Feel free to take a look at the documentation if you're interested. So let's head over to the download section, and so I think this stable version should suffice for what we're trying to do. So let's install this. Obviously, we need to accept the license agreements. So what is everyone thinking about AutomatedLabs so far? So I hope you are finding some value in these lectures, and using it for whatever you're learning, you're trying to learn. So I don't want to pause the video. I don't think it should take too long, and we should be able to configure all the values shortly. Okay, so it is done. Okay, and I'm going to go with the recommended section settings. Okay, so all you have to do is, I think you can create a folder. So let's create a folder. Say this is lab 2, I believe, and then you can after the folder, click on the folder, and then let's see, a new connection maybe. Yeah, I think so. We want to say this is DC, and then let's see. So you can give a friendly name. So I'm going to give the password of Raj, and then some pass1. The host name, you can call it as DC, because from the host I should be able to ping DC. So you don't have to type in the IP address, but that is an option as well. You can use either the host name or the IP address to connect to those VMs. To keep it simplistic, let's use the host name. And if you're wondering how is the host machine is able to find those systems, let me show you how it's actually doing it. So if I go back to my, so you may have to open it as an administrator, so let me do that actually. Yeah, this is an administrator, and then you need to go to drivers. So if you look here, when AutomatedLab is running, it is adding an host entry in the host machine, and it is populating with the IP address of those machines. So that is how you are able to reach those virtual machines from the host itself. So that works to our advantage. So you can just do this, and we want the port 3389, and I think we're good to go there. So let's give it a shot. Let's see if it works, and say connect. Okay, so it automatically connects. You don't need to type in the password. So once you do one of those missions, let's just duplicate that. 8 times, I believe. So we have 8 VMs, because the password, login and password is same across all the labs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 2 more. Okay, let's do the router. We want to call this router. The host name is router. This is, you don't have to do it in order, so I'm just going to do PCI. PCI. I believe I have a sales. What else do we have? So we have PCI sales, secret, top secret, victim, elk. Okay. Secret. So we need top secret. And then victim, and the last one is the elk. So let's once we finish this, we can connect everything and make sure we have connectivity. Okay, so I think you should be able to right click here, and I thought there's a way to connect everything in this folder. Okay, so I don't think so. So let's all you have to do is just click on each and so the green indicates that it is up and running. So this is what I was talking about. So this makes configuration easy. You can just go to each and every tab, and you can check all the machines very easily rather than using RDP protocol. So I hope you like this tool. Let's see, victim, elk stack. Why is elk not working? ELK. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is saying it's not able to find it. So let me go to the elk machine and see what's going on here. So I think the host machine, just a couple of missions. I don't think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 missions are not working. So are we having issues with the Windows 2019 server? So which are the ones? Yeah, I'm not going to edit these kind of hiccups. I think it is good to have this so that you can also learn when you're doing your own labs. So let's see, top secret. I believe there is some issue going on with the Windows 2019 server. So it's an evaluation version. So I'm not going to debug too much with what's going on. So I'm going to stick with the Windows 2016 since it's all working. So let's do this. So I'm going to remove this operating system. I typically use MSD. I have an MSDN subscription, so I have all the ISO files that I need for Windows 10, Windows 2019, and all these labs work with that. So it is only so much you can ask with the free version. So I'm not going to try to debug too much on why it's not working. I will just roll with whatever is working to proceed with this courses. So again, MSDN is the way to go if you have access to that via your work, or I don't know if it's legal to borrow from your friends. Do whatever you need to get access to those ISO files. So I'm going to say, instead of top secret, I'm going to call it HR, and then HELC, I'm going to call it elastic. I'm going to run the script again. So it's going to recreate those missions, the 2 missions which you need. And then I'm going to shut these systems down. Shut down the system so that IP addresses don't conflict with it. So let's see what happens. I think it should be able to overwrite those IP addresses. So I'm going to turn it off for now. So the top secret, we called it HR. So let me do that. And the ELK, we called it elastic. This is going to be a quick one. I just wanted to show you that the script we started in the last session just got completed. Actually, it just took 5 minutes since it had to create only a couple of missions, HR and elastic. And so all these missions are going to be using Windows 2016 server. So if you have access to MSDN, you can play with Windows 7, Windows 2012, Windows 2019. But for some reason, the free version or the evaluation version which you got from Microsoft is not working in my labs. You may have a different luck. So if I go back to mremote-ng, I already have this elastic and HR configured. So if I just go over each of these tabs, everything should be working. So these are the 8 missions which we'll be using, and I will be installing a lot of software using AutomatedLabs, and I'll also be showing a few more tools which will be really useful for spinning up by any kind of complex labs. So let's get some chocolates. If that title kind of piqued your interest, you are in for a treat. If you have never heard of Chocolatey, and that is one of the tools which I use a lot on Windows. It is something where you can use the command line to install any software that you can think of. They have a wide collection of software tools, which again, you can't even think about how many they have. So everything is pre-packaged, and you can simply install by using a couple of keywords. So if you are not familiar with what that is, again, just fasten your seatbelts. We are going to go on a ride here. So I'm going to be doing this on the host machine just to see what Chocolatey is. And eventually in the next lab, we will use Chocolatey to install some software programs on the VMs. So let's head over to Google here, and then I can Chocolatey. Okay, so it is chocolatey.org. So if you look at the documentation or the headlines here, it says that it is a package manager for Windows. So if you're familiar with the Linux, so Linux, for example, if you use any Ubuntu or a Debian based distribution, you can use commands such as apt install nmap, apt install vim. I mean, there are many tools that are available using those tools. Similarly, for Windows, the only way you can install a lot of tools is downloading the software and then unzipping it and then clicking on the MSI file or an exe file to get it installed. Of course, you can automate some of this using PowerShell or command line tools. There is nothing as powerful or sophisticated as this chocolatey. So I am willing to bet one of these days Microsoft is going to come and buy this company. It is something they should be doing by themselves. So this is really amazing. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So let's see. We want to install it. So let's go ahead and install it. So if you look at the documentation here, it says there are different ways you can install. So I want to do installation via command line. The reason we want command line is because we will be installing these tools in the VMs as well. So we want to be able to do this programmatically. So let's see, administrative shell there, and then I didn't want to go there. There is a simpler way. Install the PowerShell. A much easier way is chocolatey. So I'm just going to search for PowerShell way of installing it. Okay, this is the link I was looking for. So it says that you can copy this line. So if you click on this PowerShell, it's going to go over here, and this is the line we need. I think it was there in the previous one, but anyway, so just copy this code here and go to your command prompt. You need to be an administrator for this to install. So let's just paste it here. So this is a PowerShell. So let me start PowerShell and then click here. So this is downloading the install file, and it will install everything, including all the dependencies in your host machine. So again, this is we are doing this in the host machine, not on the VMs. So once it's installed, let me clear the screen. The way to access the command line is Choco, and you can do Choco to get all the help menus here. But don't worry too much. For example, if you want to install 7-zip, you can just do Choco install 7. I don't know if it's -zip. So it is saying 7-zip is not installed. So let me see if it's called 7-zip. I'll show you how to find the various software. Okay, it is finding it. So 7-zip is unzipping utility. So you definitely want to have that in all your VMs. So 7-zip is not installed. So if I go back to the browser here, so if you want to install zip it, the 7-zip is right here for you. So another program I like is say Sublime. So you can do Choco install. Actually, let's do Notepad++. So Notepad++. If you're wondering how I know these things, because I've done these million times and I know what this is called, but I'll show you exactly how to find the names of the software. What do you guys think of this? I mean, I don't know if you're have you used this in the past. If not, I highly recommend getting into your workflow. Not on your production work machines, but definitely in your lab, you can definitely use the software. So now that it's installed, let's take a look at if it's installed. So if you look here, Notepad++ is installed. So you can also install Firefox, for example. So I'm going to do that as well. and it's amazingly fast, super fast. I mean, you can automate put all these commands in a batch file and install all these software in your VMs as well. So if I search for Firefox now, it's going to be there. Okay, now let's head over to the website and see how to find the software. Again, the way I learn is just by Googling and see how to find it. So I'm going to say go to the main page here, and let's see, you can just, I think you can do search over here. So it's going to come up with all the different options with Notepad. So all you have to do is copy this command and install it, or copy and paste it on your terminal there. So if I want to install Sublime Text, for example, okay, this is the portable version. I don't want that. This is 3. So let's search for Sublime Text version 3. That's another editor which is pretty similar to Notepad++, but it does a lot of nice features, and I love that. So it is saying you need this command. So let's copy that and paste it here. So if you don't want this to prompt each time, you can do something like I think it's hyphen y. So you're saying just say yes to everything. If you see here, it says confirmation is set to -y. Okay, let's see what else is there. VLC media player. If you want to watch a lot of videos, I think they have that too. Maybe not. VLC. Okay, I guess it's not there. What else can we look for? Let's look for Vim. I like Vim. I use Linux a lot, so Vim is one of my favorite packages. So you can also install Vim on Linux here. So let's see what's happening here. So it is saying it's getting an error. Let's just install. I used to install the Sublime Text without any of those other parameters. So let's give it a shot. Okay, I think that is working. So Sublime, if you go type in Sublime Text 3, awesome. Yeah, just try to find whatever software you're looking for. See if it is here. Oh, actually, you know what? Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is there. You can also install, I believe, Wireshark in there. Again, I'm just spending some time because if you're seeing this for the first time, it is good to see the depth of the software that's in here, so that you can use this to do a lot of fun and variety of things, and don't have to touch any of the GUI protocols here. So why is it slow? One thing I would caution you is when you're trying to install something with Chocolatey, try to throttle it a little bit, meaning do not install like 10-15 software at the same second. They may think there is a denial of service attack, and they may stop your source IP for a few minutes, but again, it will work after some time. But if you give it some time between each install, you should be just fine. So you can also install Wireshark, as you see here. Nmap. Actually, let's do Nmap. Nmap is a tool. Again, I use it a lot. So it says Choco install Nmap. So let's do that, and then we can wrap up this session. And I'm going to force it to -y. So the reason I'm showing this in the host machine is to, for one thing, I want to show you the features that are available in the software. The second thing is we will be using AutomatedLabs to install Chocolatey in some of the VMs, so that we can install any of the software that is required on your VMs. So let me open a command prompt. Let's see. Okay, you need to open another command prompt. Okay, awesome. So it is installed. So anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss in this session. I think it went a little bit over than I wanted, but I think this is all good stuff. This is great stuff. This is exactly what you should be doing, using the tools, frameworks that are available to us and help us with any of the automation process, so that we can really focus on the learning aspect of things. So we shouldn't be spending time on like medial things like installing software for each of the labs you create. So in the next one, we will see how to install Chocolatey in the VMs. Before I continue with showing how to use Chocolatey to install various software programs in the target virtual machines, I would like to explain a few basic commands that you need to know so that you can do a lot of different activities on the virtual machines. So most of the time when you have virtual machines, in our lab we have around 8 VMs here. So most of the time you want to make some kind of a changes. For example, you may want to create a directory in the a PCI machine, for example, or you may want to copy a specific software to this HR box, right? Or you may want to do some kind of an environment variable change, or make changes to registry entries. There are any number of reasons that you can think of that you want to do within your lab. So AutomatedLabs provides us an easy way to interact with all those VMs and make changes. So let me go back to the PowerShell ISE prompt here. So I just added one more line to the script which we have been working here. So if you look here, the name of the commandlet is invoke lab command. So as the name implies, so you are trying to make some kind of a changes or invoke a command on the target virtual machines. So in this case, I'm just trying to create a directory called tools under the C drive on each and every virtual machine. So in this case, it is going to do it on each and every virtual machine because I'm using a get lab VM for the computer name parameter here. So for example, if I go and do get lab VM, so it is going to enumerate every virtual machine we have in this lab. So by just putting that in here, it is going to create the folder on each and every virtual machine. So let's give it a try, and then we will go back and check it. So this is another thing you may or may not be aware of it. So whenever you want to invoke a specific command or just run one particular line, you can just select one or multiple lines, and you can click this small play button here. So it says the run selection, or you can also use the hotkey F8. So I'm just going to click here. So this is going to be fairly quick. It is going to enumerate each and every virtual machine, and it's going to create the directory on those machines. So let's give it a few seconds for it to complete, as this shouldn't take too long for it to complete. It's just a simple directory creation. So while that's working on, let me go back here and see if it already started making the changes. So we are going to see tools directory. Awesome. Okay, so let me check one more. Okay, so all the machine looks like it already created the folder. So awesome. So let's see if the script completed. Okay, so I think yeah, it is done, and then it's saying the activity is done here. So this is pretty much what I wanted to show in this lecture. In the next one, I will show you how to copy files from the host machine to the target VMs. So last time we saw how to create a directory by invoking a lab command. So in this lecture, I will show you how to copy files from the host machine to the target VMs. So this is very handy because you don't want to be manually copying files from the host machine to each and every VM. So you can either copy files to all the VMs or virtual machines, or you can pick the virtual machine by the name of the machine and you can copy it to just those machines. So this I added 2 more lines to save some time. So I'm copying a file called topsecret.png to each and every VM because it is using this command get lab VM. So if I go back to so if I execute this mission, execute this command and then click the play button here, it is going to run and copy the files to each and every target VM. So let's take a look at that. So if I go back to the virtual machines, so if I go to PCI, so top secret is right there. Let's check one more mission before we proceed. Let's go to the sales mission. Top secret is right there. So you get the idea, right? So let's do one more thing. So I also have another script called create users.ps1, but I don't want to copy this to each and every VM because it has sensitive information by login name and passwords. We will be using this to create users in the Active Directory, so you don't have to go into the domain controller and add those users and groups manually. So in order to do that, all we have to change is the computer name and we have to specify the domain controller's machine name. So let's do that and see if it copied the file or not. So it should be fairly quick. So let me go to the domain controller here, and then it should be in the C tools folder. Okay, it is over here. And if I edit the file, it is going to open in the PowerShell ISC, which you see here. So it's a fairly simple script. So it is going to create some domain admins and create some users. I will copy the scripts to the resources folder, so you don't have to worry about this. So in the next session, I will show you how to create users in the domain controller using the script. So now we are going to create some groups and users in the domain controller so that you can use those accounts for various scenarios that you can think of. So this is a sample script. Feel free to take it and use it to or change it to your needs. Right now I'm using every user as a domain admin, but that is not a good security practice. But yeah, create different groups, OUs, modify the scripts to your pleasing, and then just play with it. So let me open the script just to show you what it looks like. So the script we copied is this create users. So if I open it with notepad, so if you have some understanding of PowerShell, you should be able to follow this through. So I'm creating like, for example, 4 AD groups: PCI, secret, top secret, sales. Feel free to change it to whatever you want. And the password for pretty much everything is going to be SumPass here. And let's see what else. So I'm also creating some users like PCI user 1, PCI user 2. And I'm assigning the PCI users to the PCI group which I created here. So if I go back to my domain controller here, let's check the status of what it looks like right now. So if I go back to the Active Directory and users, if I go back to the users, it should be pretty clean. There is only one user, Raj, which was created when we ran the scripts. So let's give it a shot and then come back to this domain controller and check it out. So I'm going to, as usual, select this line and then just select run the selection alone. So again, I can't stress this enough. Feel free to look at the script and add any commands or any users that you can also create OUs. You can make this very sophisticated to your needs. Looks like it is done. So let me go back to the domain controller and then let me refresh this users. Awesome. So like expected, it created a group called sales secret, top secret. It also created the users. So if I go back to PCI and the members, we have the 3 members here. And also if I go back to any of the users and then if you look at member of, they're all members of domain admin. I'm sorry, they're all members of PCI. So again, that gives you an idea, the power of what we are trying to achieve here. So these tasks, which are used to be very not complicated, but very manual. I mean, it uses a lot of your precious time, which you could be using it for really your learning rather than spending time in creating these labs. So again, once you have a fairly complicated script, even if you have to delete the labs, you just have to run the lab and come back after 1 hour, and you will have a lab in a steady state, which you can start exploring it again. Okay. So in the next session, we will use the Chocolatey, which we promised before, and we will install a couple of softwares in a few different machines. Okay, I hope this was interesting, and I will see you in the next video. Now that we looked at a couple of basic commands on how to copy programs or files to your virtual machines, and also how to invoke some kind of a PowerShell or a DOS command on each of your virtual machines. Now let's take a look and see how we can use that to our advantage, and using a framework like Chocolatey, which we saw earlier, to install software on the virtual machines. So let me go back to the PowerShell prompt here, and I added a couple of lines here. So the line 60 and 61 is the new lines I added. So this is nothing new. It's the same line, but I'm just targeting a virtual machine PCI, which is in our labs. So inside the script block here, it looks a fairly complicated command, but I just took this command from the Chocolatey website. So in order to show you what I did, let me go to Chocolatey. Just search something like this, and you should be able to get that command line. So Chocolatey software installation, and we're looking for PowerShell. So just if you highlight it here, it takes you to the command. So this is the exact line which you see over here. The reason I'm showing you rather than just giving you the commands is you should be able to learn these kind of research techniques so that you can expand your learning skills. So once you grab it there, that is there. And the next line is you're installing any software as you see here. So let's execute one. You should be able to execute both together, but I'm just going to do one by one so that we can see what is going on. So this command is being executed on the target mission. So it is saying that the specified mission is not found in the lab. Oh, this is an excellent leeway. So this particular hypervisor or host mission, I do have a lot more labs I create for other courses and my personal requirements. So when I created a lab, it puts the other systems into the context. So if you look here, there's a lot more VMs. But again, so if you want to import your lab, there is another command I want you to let you know. So you need to find the name of the lab, which in this case is lab 2. So all you have to do is import lab, and then you can say lab 2. And also you should say no validation. If you do no validation, it will load the labs quickly. So you can have multiple labs or multiple scripts like this with different labs, and then you should be able to be in the context of that lab whenever you need it. So now if I do get lab VMs or lab, so now we are in the right context on what we are looking at. So now let me go back and then try to execute this command. Again, I'm really glad that we ended up with an error. So when you start poking with this in your own labs, you are going to be creating multiple labs with different virtual machines with different lab names. So you need to make sure that you are on the correct lab before you can execute any commands. So let me go back here and run this command here. So this shouldn't take too long. So it grabs all the binaries from the Chocolatey website and it installs on the PCI virtual machine. That is interesting error. Let us take a look and see what is going on here. So it says could not create. So let's take this command and Google and see. So we're going to say Chocolatey. Yeah, the goal is to look for something that can fix our issue. Okay, this looks more relevant. Looks like the security protocol changed. Okay, let's take a look and see if this will work for our requirements here. So let's grab that and then let me delete that and then paste that command right there. Okay, so let's give this a shot. If this doesn't work, I will do further research and try to fix this. So perfect. So I used to use the same command which I showed earlier on a Windows 2019 machine, and I never had any issues. The one lab or virtual machine we are dealing with right now is Windows 2016. So maybe the security protocols are changed a little bit. So do not get into too much of the weeds and why it is not working. I mean, it is, if you go in that route, that's totally fine with me. But just get your lab working first so that you can get on with your learning, and you can research this whenever you get a chance. So now that it's installed, you should be able to install Notepad++ on that virtual machine. So let me, while that is going on, let me go back to the virtual machine and PCI. Okay, let me see if that script is done. Okay, it's still installing. So now we should be able to see the Notepad++ right here. Awesome. So let's open a command prompt and see if there is a file called or like an nmap utility. So nmap is not there. So let's see if we can install nmap on this machine. So let's grab this line, paste it, and then nmap. So while this is going on, I just want to give one piece of advice. So whenever using a framework like Chocolatey, it's an amazing platform or a framework, do not try to use the GitLab VM on here and try to install software on all the machines. So if you're having only 1 or 2 virtual machines, that is totally fine. But if you have like 10, 15, 20 machines, Chocolatey, I mean, they think some kind of a denial of service attack is happening, and they may try to block your source IP for some time. I mean, they're not going to block you forever, but they may block you for like a certain amount of time. So it takes a little bit to get unlocked, while you may not be able to use any of the chocolatey features. So my strong recommendation is just pick 1 or 2 machines where you need all the software, and then work with this, or put some kind of a delay in between commands, so that so they don't think like you're trying to do some kind of an attack against their servers. So you can get away with those if you subscribe to them or pay, go to a paid service. But I mean, for the purpose what we are trying to do, we don't have to. I mean, this is totally free for us to do. So let me go back to. We may have to restart the prompt. So let me close this and open another prompt. It's still not working. Oh, we are in PCI. Okay. It's still not recognized. Let me see if there's any errors when it was installing. So we did install nmap on PCI. It looks like everything was successful, right? So let's see what is going on here. So it looks like the environment variables were not set correctly. I know it is installed for sure. Let's take a look and see what is going on here. So see. Program files nmap. So let's go back here. Program files. It is not there. Oh, it's x86. Okay, so nmap is right there. And if I look at the nmap utility, it should be right there. So we can sometimes the environment variables may not be set correctly. So in order to do that, you can so if you want to get it working, you can always go to program files and then use nmap from here. Or if you wanted to make it working from everywhere, you can add an environment variable as well. So let me show you how to add an environment variable here. It's advanced system settings and then environment variables. So you can add a new system variable, and then actually you can edit the path. So let's edit the path, and then you can say new, and it'll be C. Since I don't want to mess it up, so let me copy it from here. C program files nmap, and then you right click on any file, go to properties, and then just grab this here. That's pretty much what you need to do. Most often on some operating systems like Windows 10, these environment variables get installed automatically. Even in Windows 29, I don't have issues. I don't have to do this. But it is good we had to go through this because this is something you may come across when you try to install different operating systems. So let me close all the prompts here and then open a new command prompt. Awesome. Okay. So this was interesting. And also you can similarly install any software that you may want to do in your labs. So another program could be Wireshark. So in order to find the software, just go to Chocolatey. Search something like that, and then so whatever software you're looking for, just search for it here, and you should be able to see it. For example, if you want Wireshark, yeah, my internet is a little bit slow today. So again, we're doing it on only one machine here, so you can as well do it on other machines if you so require. But again, like I said, try to throttle it down so that so you don't just okay. So here you go. So this is the Chocolate install Wireshark. So there are like thousands of software in this repository. So whenever you need something that is you need to install, instead of downloading the software, come and check here and then go from there. Configuration file from here. So what I would do is there are different ways, but just go to raw view, Control A, and create a file called sysmon config -export.xml. For example, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to that C, lab sources, software packages, and you can do a notepad, and then you can grab that name called sysmon config export.xml. I already created that, or maybe not. So I'm just, did I do XML here? Okay. So sysmon config -export.xml. Okay. I'm just going to paste it and then save it here. Sysmon config -export.xml. Okay, perfect. Okay. So now that we have both those files, I'm going to go back to my PowerShell script. I have a snippet of code which I already copied here. And so these are the 2 lines. I already ran this one time, but it doesn't harm to do it again. So I'm going to copy this sysmon64 to the tools directory. So let me do that. And then we're going to copy the configuration file to that same folder, the tools folder. And the next step is to install the program. So it's pretty simple. All you have to call the binary, accept the EULA, and then you have to I is for install, U is for uninstall. So if you want to uninstall this utility, all you have to do is just do a -u. And then this is the configuration file we want the sysmon to use. So I'm going to run that. You may see an error because it's already running, but again, in your case, you should be totally fine. So let's give it a minute or two. It's already done. Okay, so it says already registered. You can uninstall before reinstalling. So now that is done, let's go and take a couple of look at a couple of system what it looks like. So I'm going to go to the event viewer here. So it is not going to be in the normal location where you're pretty used to seeing. So it is going to be in a new location called application and services. This is where Microsoft provides a way to extend your logging capabilities. So if you go to Microsoft, because this is a Microsoft provided utility, and you can search for, I believe it's sysmon. Did I miss the yes? Okay, here it is. So if you go to operational, you're going to see all the events that are going here. So for example, if you open Paint, for example, and close it, you're going to see, just refresh it here. I'm just going to search for paint. So if you look at this event here, it's a process creation, and it gives a lot more details about that process, when it was started, when it was terminated, and the mission name, the event ID, and a lot more information which can be used for like threat hunting. So let's say a malware just popped for a few seconds and then destroyed itself. This is the only way you should be able to track it, like what it is doing in real time. Just to give you, let's go to one more system. I don't need to update right now. Go away, Microsoft. So again, you have to go to Event Viewer, Applications and Services. I'm just doing it one more time so that you get used to the location where it is. Go to Microsoft, Windows, sysmon, and you see the same events. As you can see, this grows a lot. Interesting, there's also some DNS queries. The reason we use that configuration, the XML file, is to limit what is being logged in here. So if you don't use that configuration file, by now you'd have seen like thousands of entries, because Windows is pretty chatty. So you're going to see a lot more events that are caused by standard Windows processes, and you will have to filter everything out. So like I said, just Google around for a good configuration file, and then try to understand what it is doing. So let me show you like what it really looks like. It's not too complicated once you understand. So if I go to C Tools, so if I open the configuration file and edit it, once you just spend some time, you'll understand this. So basically, there is saying, hey, processes. It says to exclude some processes that are what I was listed here. So these are like Windows standard processes, and all you're telling is if any of these processes launch, kill, or does anything, just exclude it. So you're not going to be seeing a lot of processes based on this one. And you can do the same thing for networking, file changes, and things like that. So take a look at it, and then play with it, add or remove based on your requirements. So let's see. So now that by using automation, we were able to install sysmon on all these systems in our labs. So the goal of this course is not to teach sysinternals or Elasticstack, but just to show you how powerful it can be to automate anything that you need. So I'm just giving an interesting flavor of what you can do with AutomatedLab. So that wraps up our course on AutomatedLab. So I hope the last couple of hours was useful for you. And then I'm sure you can use this kind of tricks and tools for your own use cases. So I just wanted to give you a short homework so that you get some practice on how to do this yourself. So we did created a virtual machine called ELK, or Elasticsearch. So I want you to try to see if you can set up Elasticsearch and Kibana in that machine using the scripts or the techniques we learned all along. Right. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So you can go to Elasticsearch, and you can download the binaries, and if you search, do a little bit of research, you can find like how to install these tools using command line parameters like you see here. Similarly, you can go to Kibana, and then so all I'm getting here is, there's a command line parameters which you can use and then set it up in a fully automated fashion. So if you do this by yourself, you're going to have the full power in your own hands to create any kind of labs you can think of. So try it out, and if you have any difficulties, let me know. I can have another add-on video and demonstrate how this works. So again, thank you for your time, and again, I will be coming up with some Azure related courses pretty soon, and I'll meet you soon there. Okay, have a good day, and then I'll see you soon.